My screen looks cloudy. Hold on. All I got is a fabric scrap. I don't have a piece of batting. Hopefully this works. All right. And it could be my glasses too with my hair hitting them. It looks a little cloudy to me. But hello, Teaquilters. Welcome to today's live chat. It is, let's see, Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. You all are crooked. And we are here for live chat. I don't know how it's crooked. That's weird. But okay. um, did I say it's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time? We have 1 hour today. I also have live chat on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for 2 hours where I do live sew and chat. So let me pull you guys up. Wrong phone. On my phone here I use to read the chat comments. Okay. Apparently it's done some system update. So see. Make sure I got this volume down. And all right, live chat. It's saying live chat has moved. Really? All right. Darcy Savali here saying hi, quilters. Make sure you give T her thumbs up. And if you're near her, be sure to subscribe and have fun with us. Hit the bell so you get notifications when T is here. So thank you, Darcy, for that. I'll pin that message. Appreciate that. Also have a YouTube, not a YouTube, a Facebook channel. That's Teaquilts LLC. So if you're interested, please go join that as well. Let's see. Zandra Oldham is here. Teresa McCormick. Don Cunningham. Jean Brittman says, hello at Teaquilts, Darcy and everyone. Angela Stringer, good evening, TNT folks. It is a joy to cut up a needle down. Vivian Calvi is here. Nikki B. Janet Mackerel. Rebecca T. Tammy Boyd. Carla Ford. Saying that she'll be listening. She's still at work. Carla, I got an update. Your package looked like it might be coming tomorrow instead of Friday. Emily Zahoot saying hi to everyone. Brenda Foley. Melissa LePage. Denise Sopatch 33. Donnell Stevens. I thought that was like a couples, but I could be mistaken. Hello to all my beautiful quilty peeps coming from Roseville, Michigan. Hope everyone is having an amazing day. So Denise is reminding people to hit the thumbs up. Deborah Quilts is here. So now Deborah Quilts is here. I'm trying to make sure ain't nothing in my background showing. Okay. All right, Deborah Quilts. Mary F. saying howdy from Sultry, Kansas. Remo JS here saying good evening, T. Miss T and Quilters. Thumbs up. Show your love and support. Stop lurking and join us and subscribe. You will definitely enjoy. So thank you, Miss Remo. Sandy Agger is here saying hi. T. Roberts saying good evening. Sue GSD says hello, T and fellow quilters from beautiful St. Louis, Missouri. Let me announce 412 days until the wonderful Miss T hosts the best retreat possible. Hey, Sue, thanks for the update on retreat days. Grace McGee is here saying hello, T and quilters friends from Tallahassee, Florida. So welcome, Grace McGee. Okay, Carla. And Judy is here saying hello, all. So, yeah. I don't have an agenda tonight. So what I will do is if you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat box and I will answer those questions. which is so weird today, I got in the last 24 hours, I got 3 questions about the Butler system, and all of them are more complex than just me talking about something, and it's very difficult to write a response to what people are asking questions about. So, and it's going to be a whole nother process for answering questions where you're needing, I can't type a detailed um do this, do this, do that, and I have to actually go to the machine and make sure I'm hitting the right icon in the right position. When I know how to do stuff, I'm just punching stuff on the screen. So I have gotten like 3 major questions about Butler. I do in online training for Butler. So if you're interested in that, you can contact me at Teaquilts@teaquilts.com for that. But if I don't have the video, and it's something that you're needing detail, you might need to just hire me to do a 1 hour lesson with you on Butler so you can ask any questions that you have at that time that I'm able to assist you with. I don't proclaim to know everything about Butler, but most of the questions that I was asked, I think I do know those answers. But it's one of those things that it's going to take me more time to type out a detailed thing than it is for me to do a lesson and show you how to use that. So that's where I'm at with that. I'll have to respond to that on the chats, but I haven't had time to do that. Um, Bonita Nance is here, and Mary is. Oh, okay. And Tantrum saying hello again from New Zealand. Very stormy here. Hail, thunder, heavy rain. She's curled up watching. So be safe. Hopefully everything will go over pretty fast. Melody Kiefer's here saying good evening to everyone. So yeah, so I don't have a a big agenda. What I have been doing is since Saturday is, and then so I've still been doing some other stuff that's not quilt related. I have been We did have a Zoom on Sunday, so we were in that for a few hours, and I have been sewing. I got 2 guild challenges that are due for a retreat. That's Memorial Day weekend, so need to have them done the Wednesday before, because our retreat is Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's how we do it. And so I want to make sure that I need 2 quilts. One is work on a UFO project, which I think I figured out which one that is. And then I also had to make a quilt from a jelly roll. And I started one project and had done some cutting and started sewing stuff together and realized I didn't like it. So I am I started over on Monday from scratch. So the other projects is just sitting there in pieces. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Um C Rex is here. Um Remo's reminding people to hit the thumbs up, and don't forget um to match the numbers of thumbs up to the numbers that's watching. That's what she's trying to say, I think. um what she says, I had to wash my comforter and it is too big for my washing, so I take it to the laundromat. I want to get the binding down on my quilt, so I brought it with me. Never done that before. That's funny. And Remo is even also asking people to keep her dad in your prayers. So prayers out to Remo's dad. So yeah. So I've been working on heavily on the jelly roll quilt, to the point where I've got a few more pieces I need to sew together before I can start constructing the quilt top. So I'm getting there. I feel like I'll make my deadline. I think I've got 2 weeks. And so I feel like I'll make the deadline. I just need to get them both quilted. So I'm not currently quilting for any customers at this point. I'm also in a sew along Zoom meeting, and I was working on that because I had to. It's time for that project to be quilted as well, and I had to piece my backing because I didn't have the fabrics that I were using. I didn't have enough of that particular fabric to quilt it, so I got that piece. Now I got to figure out. I think I want to use flannel on the inside instead of batting. I think, and so now I need to pull some flannel. May have to piece it too to get it big enough because it's not batting. And so I need to pre-wash it first, though, a couple of times before I put it in my project. So that's kind of, I've been busy, and you all can see the purple here. I have been working on some test pieces. I was trying to see if I had a board in here, design board. Um, that's smaller because I'm in a small space. But let's take that down. So I've been playing with some chisel pieces, and so I'm just gonna put this on here. And so I've been working on some kind of a border for my Crown Royal quilt, and I sewed these pieces together, and I do like them. So let me show it to you up here. But the reason why I got the board is because the next ones are not together. But I also decided maybe to play around a little bit and maybe change them out. I'm only going to be able to probably put 3 of these on this board. So that is what it is. All right. And then I also thought about that I could do this border as well. Trying to make sure my pieces don't fly off the edges. So, yeah. So I thought that I could also do that as well. So, I got the top pieces actually sewed together, so I will probably go with that type of border. And then I do like this border. And the next quilt that I do have a quilt with chisels coming up for my scrap club. Um, it's due during the October through December months. So I'll start working on it. So maybe I'll save this second border for that, maybe, instead of ripping out pieces, even though I just pieced some stuff together so that I could get test piecing to see what I would like. So I have been working on that. I couldn't find my background fabric because I've been going through a lot of fabric changing with putting fabric back on shelves, wrapping fabrics and all of that. So it got a little misplaced. I found it. For some reason, I set it on my brother's sewing machine, and then I put the cover on top of the machine. So I did find it so that I could cut the back. I was looking for the grunge here. And now I can't figure out what I did with the second time that I cut bags. I can't find the pieces to cut the border pieces. So I have some chisel pieces cut. So this is what I'll be working on Saturday. But I only got maybe 30 of them here, over here. And I can't find my bag to know what I did with the chisel pieces. Just crazy. But that's where I'm at. Trying to figure out um where are the cut off pieces. Now I'm blocking who sent it to me now. Somebody sent me some scraps, but the way she cut her bags, I've got really long pieces, and I prefer to use the short pieces first when I'm actually cutting short pieces. And I don't want to waste the long cut pieces that she sent me. So I may have to break down and cut those because I can't find my bag that I had my Crown Royal cutoffs in. So I've been very busy with stuff like that as well. So hopefully you all are having a great week thus far. Let me know what's going on with you, what you've been sewing on. You got any challenge projects you're working on? And thanks, Sandy. And Mary says, "Ooh, chevron, nice." Yes. I finished my optional block now. I just need to mail it. Thinking of optional blocks, that's from Darcy. I did receive optional blocks from Dee Dee, Deborah Sims Brown, and one more, Francis Jackson. And I just keep forgetting to post it into the group, but I do have those that came in this week. Katie Crafts is here. T says, couldn't work on Boho Hout, lost the book. Well, found it in the garage. How? Why? Right. I had lost my book too, but I didn't confess to that. I had it under the brother arm too. I don't know how stuff is getting on a machine that I haven't used in a few months. It's kind of weird. So, but that is where I normally will cut and organize. It's where I press, so I can understand why it probably got into that area, and I probably was cutting something and put it up there. But it's like, what is wrong? Why can't you put your stuff where it needs to go? And it's like I've been working on all these projects at the same time, and so I'm just trying to keep them out, and then I'm not keeping up with where I'm putting stuff when I just move it in a split second to cut something. So I kind of understand, and then I don't. So yeah. But on my design wall here, I got my jelly roll stuff that I can't show you all. But I really like this better than what I had before. It's not that it's something that's totally fantastic, but it's way better than what I had. I had some stuff that I cut, and then it didn't do what I thought it was going to do, and I had cut all of it. I could have made some changes to how it was being cut, but it was too late because I already cut it all. So it'll either end up being a charity quilt or maybe a giveaway project for somebody else to make a charity quilt. It'll be great too if I would just throw some appliques on top if I don't like it. So it can be salvaged. It's just not what I wanted, not what I had in my mind. And right now, I don't feel like trying to figure out how to fix it. So I just said it was easier for me to start fresh. And that's what I did, started fresh. So, but that's weird when if I ever have something like that end up in the garage, I'm just going to pass out. Judy Smith is here. Welcome to the chat. Darcy's reminding people to hit. All right, guys, my fault on the mic. I'm not using one now. I did not charge it from last week. And totally my fault. I got plugged in now. So my regular mic on my iPad should be just fine. So thank you, Betsy. It should be just fine because I'm kind of up close to the I'm up close to the camera, not so much as to the mic, but it's normally fine. But I just wear a mic just for the better sound. So thank you, everybody that's letting me know. Mary says, I have a cracked tooth and am in terrible pain. Can't get a root canal. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to talk about dentists. I'm so glad I've done my part with the dentist for the major stuff already this year. Goodness gracious. Don't want to talk about them. And she's saying she'll catch us later. So hope you feel better, Mary. Joan E is here saying hi to everyone. Got my optional block top. Nearly peace. Thinking of each of you, especially when I see your names. Feeling thankful. So that's awesome. I think there was 2 winners to the jar block. So she's got them put together pretty fast. So that was good. We had I think that was the most blocks we'd ever received, considering like the average, considering how many people sent them in. Because I've had more people send blocks, but I had more of these jar blocks. So I think people really enjoyed making the scrap jars blocks. So that's pretty cool. I wish I would have won from my Gil or something, but I didn't. um, I do think I might end up doing something with them. I put a jar block in my boho heart quilt. I think it's in the other column, not in the blocks up here, I think. And I think those would look really cute. I used just crumb blocks, but they would look really cute, fussy cut, or a particular types of fabric, like my African print fabrics. I'm thinking about making some African jars, so I might end up making a jar quilt, but I really wanted to win those. Those were really pretty. Lori B says she lost her connection. I got a piece of my hair, I guess, stuck in my ring. Francis Jackson is here saying hello. And T talking about it wasn't even her who found it. Her daughter was cleaning the garage. The only thing I do in the garage is park and go in and out the house. So that is too funny. Joan says she's got 25 blocks. Yeah, so then it must have been 49 blocks that were collected, because I think Joan won first and then the other person got 24. That was an odd number. Well, that was an odd number of blocks, because you only really had to submit one block. A lot of people submitted more than one, apparently. And so, yeah. So, I am just trying to get, I did finish quilting a quilt. That's what I mailed. That's what I mailed to Carla. It was one of her quilts. I do have 2 more quilts of Carla's, but those will go into June. Right now, I'm just trying to finish out these challenge quilts I got. I got a couple quilts, a few quilts that are before Carla's other quilts. So I just been trying to do some stuff. I did also quilt a double wedding ring quilt for somebody that, y'all know I'm sentimental. I had somebody who's, okay, I had a lady call me saying that her grandmother had started a double wedding ring quilt and that her mother had finished it, and then it was going to her niece who had recently gotten married. And so my first question is, when are you wanting this done? And they didn't have a deadline, so that was good. So I gave them a 2-month deadline, and I went in right at six weeks. I think I got it done, trying to make sure I didn't wait till the last total minute. And so I got the quilt top. Of course, 2 different people working on it. You've got different workmanship. The one that looked like the one that did the majority of it had good piecing, and I think the other person put it all together and added some intricate piecing of the curves, and so you could see where it was puckered already. So it was a challenge to quilt it. I could not leave my machine. This was the first time I'd ever put a quilt on my frame, and then I was scared to hit the go button because I was so scared. I was scared to use the spoon foot because I felt like I needed to see it so it wouldn't pucker quite as much. And I was not going to sit there and try to draw up every pucker when the pucker was actually stitched into the seam. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose. It wasn't like putting something together that one piece might have been bigger than the other and it was a straight line. You could ease in some fullness a little bit. Your feed dogs put a pleat when you're going around curves for the most part. It doesn't ease quite the same when it's not the right size. So it was just weird. Had little weird personal touches throughout the quilt top. So I had to stand. This was my first time staying with the quilt the entire time that it quilted, and that was a lot of waste of my time. But the only reason I kept persevering, it's not totally perfect. One of these days you all will see the video. It's not totally perfect, but I was trying to do something that was going to be in a family that was 4 generations down. That's, you know, it started at a great grandmother going to that great grandchild, And so I just wanted to make sure that the quilt at least got done. So now the grandmother of the person that got married, who's going to be the owner of the quilt, she's now doing the binding. And they wanted me to do the binding as well, but it's like you can't pay me enough to put scallop border on somebody else's quilt. I've done it once for my Dear Jane quilt, and it's just not something that I enjoy doing. And when it's things that I don't enjoy doing, I try to price so that I'm not encouraged to do so. So, but yeah, I got it done, but like I said, it's still, you can't, everything doesn't quilt out, I guess, is my thing. I've talked to you all about that before. And it's not that I'm talking about this in a bad way. I'm just making a statement, but I still wanted them to have, because another long armor wouldn't have quilted that. And I didn't charge them for my time, for me having to actually stand right there and babysit this quilt top the entire way down. I did not charge them extra for that. But I am a sucker for people that have sentimental value into quilts or quilt processes or things like that, especially when it's coming from something 4 generations total. And hopefully the daughter will take care of it and use it well. I should have given them some instructions on how to use it, like really not using it. But you know what, I just decided, you know what, they should have known or should look at this quilt top before. They should know what the quirky things are going on in this quilt. I'm just gonna let this quilt be. They can judge how they want to use this quilt, so let them deal with it down the road when they're looking for somebody to do repair. So let's see. Dee Dee Hansen here from Michigan. Hey, Dee Dee. If Dee Dee and Francis came in, I did receive your blocks. I just been negligent in posting it into the group that they came. I actually got them on Monday, I think. Your two. Celia Swain is here. Sparky Al 43 is here. And Darcy saying, it's okay to be late just long as you hit that thumbs up button. Thank you, Darcy. See, Sue says, I think someone could make some money at retreat if they just sat and did bindings. Yeah, I hate it. Deborah Sims Brown is here. Your block came today. Denise says, thank you for the visit. Husband says, supper is ready. So good night, Denise. Have fun. You are a good person, and I hope that they will have it for a long time through many generations. Yeah, that's what I hope too. I hope that the granddaughter doesn't use the quilt, or if she does put it on a bed, make it a guest bed and then take it off when people come. The quilt was hand pieced, and what people don't realize, I know that we use quilts a lot, but when you hand piece a quilt and or hand quilt a quilt, you do not want to sit on that quilt. You're putting stress on hand stitch seams. It's not like machine quilting that's stronger. And if you sit on a bed and then you bend over and start, taking your shoes off or tying your shoes or, rolling all over on the bed, you're putting stress on the seams. I have hand quilted a quilt, and I'm telling you that the seams have come up, the threads have come out of the quilting. I didn't hand piece it, I hand quilted it. And the piecing was coming out. So I swear that anytime I put a quilt on my bed that's hand quilted, I make sure I pull that quilt back before I sit on that bed, or if I go to bed at night. I try not to even go to bed with it, but if I do, I make sure that it definitely stays on top. Now that I get hot all the time, I just don't use those quilts. I got about 3 quilts that are hand quilted. And there is no way that I'm going to use those quilts and watch the threads popping out. And one of them, the threads did pop out, but I just decided not to restitch it. It's just going to be what it is. A quilt can't have a death sentence. So, and it was one that I used on my bed and washed, and just wasn't aware that you know, I shouldn't be sitting on a quilt until it was, and it take you a while before you realize that the stitches are popping because you're not looking for it. And so, yeah. So just be careful with your hand quilted quilts and people that sit on beds. Dee Dee says, what is on the board behind you? That looks new. This actually is old. It's still that African. I started with a 9 patch of different African fabrics and then cut it. It was, I don't know. I forget the word now. But, it was like a disappearing 9 patch, but not really. It was different. It started with a 9 patch, so it could be a disappearing 9 patch in that way. But it was a more improv. That's what I'm looking for, improv. Just cutting it random. And then I took some of the fabrics that I had from the scraps left over from making the 9 patches. I added extra fabric to just fill in where I need it. So it was more of an improv piece because it's more than just a 9 patch block. I added other fabric to it as well. Quilt Queen 22 says hello, my quilting friends. Hello, welcome to the chat and the channel. I think Quilts by Carmel. Miss Joe Carmel's here saying hi to you and all T quilters. Hey, Miss Joe Carmel, I saw your video today where she had her exploding heart quilt that I quilted and sent back to her. She talked about it today. She talked about her a panel quilt that she's working on as well. So you all can go over to her channel and help her out with that. Darcy says, I do one side of my binding with the machine and then do the other side by my hand. And that's how I normally do them, except for when I got 10 of them backed up and they're all bed size. I have this issue where I start out saying I'm not going to make all these bed size quilts because I take, you know, I present lectures and taking them to lectures, and then I look up and I'll make one 18-inch quilt, 24-inch quilt, and then I'm back to 96 inches, 100 inches. And so I forget that I'm not supposed to make large quilts. It seems like every time I make a quilt, I'm making it for at least a twin size bed. So they keep getting bigger. So, and one of the challenge quilts that I have to do has to be at least 60 inches on both sides, something like that, I think. So yeah, so that's not going to be the smallest project. It's going to be at least, not necessarily a bed size, but it's going to at least be lap size, a huge lap size. So Kevin the quilter is here. Hey Kevin. He says, Kevin the sleepy quilter here. Boy, did that nap take me out. Sorry I'm late, Miss T. I thought about calling you earlier today, but then I kept running around doing stuff. So yeah, I didn't make that call. Rhonda Barlow is here saying hi to everyone. Judy Smith talking to somebody else. Elaine Doucette's here as well. She says she's late for an important date. So yeah. So if you got any questions, you can post them into the comment box as well. I don't have an agenda today because I've been mentally busy doing other stuff that I've shown you all. I'm trying to think, was there something else? Oh, I was sewing on the Zoom project, and I haven't shown that here either. So eventually everything will come to light. Just right now, I don't want any questions about it. And when I get it done, it's just going to be done, because I'm not going to do I don't even know if I'm going to do any referrals to this, because I don't even like the way the instructions are written. So you'll just be seeing it, and I'll be saying no information to provide or something, okay? That's the one thing I don't refer. If you fall upon it and catch it for yourself, that's fine. But I don't refer things that are difficult or not as well written as it could be. And so this is one of those projects in the Zoom classes that I'm having, is that this project is a pain in the butt because the instructions are not the best. So I don't tend to refer things that are not on the up and up, especially if I'm not going to have something where I'm helping you with it, because if I tell you to go do it, and you do it, you're going to be contacting me, asking me questions, and I'm not answering all those questions because I'm just figuring it out for myself as I go. And I'm writing a whole lot of stuff down and then have to change that. So, yeah, this is not something I'm going to be recommending. I found the grunge. Joe Carmel, you came in late. So I did find the grunge. I got some of my sample pieces sewed. I did show earlier in the video where I got these pieces. But I think I'm going to use this, the border that I laid out with this one, because I was just had some pieces for testing. And I think I like what I did with this when I laid these pieces out on the board. But I think I'm going to save it for another quilt because I'm going to be working with chevrons in another quilt with my scrap club. So I'm going to save that border for later. But yeah, I did find the fabric. Now I need to find the Crown Royal scrap pieces that I had the second time I cut. Okay, I found the ones when I cut the first one. I cut, let's see, that's 18. So I found 48. I had about 80 something Crown Royal pieces, 86, 88 or something. I can't remember. So it should be another 30 something somewhere pieces that I need to find. I just may cut the scraps I got. Janet says she's been planting flowers today. I would love to do just binding. That's Elaine. Oh my God, you are a godsend. Did y'all see that Tucker is now a gamble educator? Yes, I did. I did. I knew a long time ago when he was spotted, when he posted that he was on a trip coming through Missouri. So I knew. I met with Tucker and his mom. We went and had like brunch. Well, it was breakfast. I think it was breakfast hours because they was on their way back home. But he let me know that he was in Missouri. And that he's a gamble educator. So I'm so happy for him. I just want him to be careful, make sure that he's not, that he's taken care of, I guess, is my concern with companies and him being so young. So that's my only concern with Tucker. But I am so proud of him and so happy for him that he's able to do that, what he wants to do. And then there will be some travel with that as well. So that's really cool. So yeah. Sue says, I've been working on charity quilts for cancer kids going through chemo, so that's awesome too. I like that. I like giving kids quilts. Their expectations are very low, and the more color in most of them, the better for them. So it's not like adults when they have their own color scheme at home. People haven't realized that we're not giving you a quilt to match your color scheme at home. We're giving you a quilt because we made what we thought was for you, something that you would enjoy. So it's a little bit different when you're making a quilt for an adult who is wanting you to match to something else, where it's just making what you want to make. So I really love making quilts for children. Judy Hebert saying hi from Georgia. Joe saying, yay, love all the purple. I will add a little strip of gold grunge or something in this quilt in the border, but right now I'm just piecing pieces for the border, and then whatever I make and get stitched together, it'll decide what those borders are going to be, border will be before I put this on the quilt. So that's kind of what's going on with that. I'm just piecing pieces, and because when you're making a piece border, you got to start piecing the pieces. So you can't just wait until you get there and then you decide, oh, well, now my quilt's too big. I need to add an extra one on this side, but not on that side. And so you can control that by making your border first and then making your border fit your quilt. Your border is before that final border fits your quilt. Makes life a lot easier. It does take math. A lot of us don't like math. Like that is here. Hello, welcome back. Um, Elaine Doucette saying so true, Miss T. um, Sue says that was the absolute highlight of last year. They're talking about retreat. Sue and Joe Carmel. Um, Rochelle Rice saying good evening. Hello, Rochelle. Welcome to the chat. Appreciate you commenting. Um, Elaine says a gifted quilt doesn't have to match the room, just match the recipient. And that's what people don't understand. Like, when I made the rainbow quilt that I made for my friend, she is a lesbian, and she but I made it because I know how she follows that she uses rainbow colors. So I made a quilt for her. It took me a long time to get her on my list. I've been meaning to make a quilt for her for years. Um, and it just never manifested. And so some things happened in the past where I had made her a quilt, and then that quilt was no longer conducive to what she was going through. So I had to scrap that idea. Matter of fact, I ended up tossing that into the trash can because I didn't want any history of it either. so, so we both were glad to toss that into the trash. And so it just took me a while to put her back on my list to figure out what it was that I was going to do. And then the second quilt that I made was even more better for her than the first quilt that I was making for her. And so it just, I make what I feel like I want to make for the person that I want to make it for, especially if it's a gift. If you're coming to me asking me to make you a quilt and it's being commissioned, and that's a whole nother different story, but a gift is something else. If you're paying for it, I'll make what you're paying me for. But and she loves her quilt. She hasn't had that quilt but since Christmas, and she's already washed the quilt. So that lets me know she had to call me and ask me how to wash because I forgot to put the instructions in there. I forgot. But she called me and asked me how to wash, and I felt really good at that. And even after she washed it, she sent me a picture of it washed when it was back on her bed. And it's not even a bed quilt, it's a sofa quilt, but she's got it on top of her comforter on her bed. She doesn't care. She's in love with that quilt. But that's when you try to make something for people based on what they're involved in or who they are. And some people appreciate it and others do not. So, and you never know that until you give them the quilt. And that lets me know whether or not I'm ever going to make a person a second quilt. And she's already on my second quilt list because if she using her quilt, and if she uses it and it doesn't work out, and it starts to tear and rip, she has no problem getting another quilt, because that's what quilts are made for people to use. I didn't make her an heirloom quilt to just sit on a shelf and never be used. I want her to use that quilt. It was made for her. So I love that. Suta, but she cut the grass. She don't know which one is worse, sinus or back pain. I'm going through a lot of sinus issues now. Rochelle says, thank you for the kind welcome. I watch you on my Roku all the time. Well, thank you. I am guilty of that as well. That's the one thing that I hate, is that you can't comment on television. I don't even know if the television even acknowledges that you subscribe via the television, because I don't get the same when I go to my phone. If I'm out and decide to look at a video or something while I'm waiting at a doctor's office or something, I don't have the same playlist. I don't have the same subscriber list. So it's kind of weird to me that I'm hooked up through Roku through my YouTube account, and my news feeds aren't the same. So I don't know if it's actually working that way. So very interesting. See who else. Cheryl says, how do you scrap a quilt when you don't have the space? You always have the space. You're just going to have to, you're only working with, I always square up the corners. And I get, let like a big 12 by 12, or even if you have a larger one, that's fine. But any large ruler, square up. And then what I do is I put, so if this is my square up and my 1 and 1 is here, then if I'm squaring the top corner, I just make sure that I put some line, like say they had a 6-inch border that they put on there. So they cut strip 6.5. So technically it should be 6 1/4 left. Now there will be some draw up, but it's happening all over the quilt. So I would put a line on my ruler that corresponds with the seam line of that last border they put on. And so it might be 6 inches or it might be 6 1/4 because a quarter has already been pieced in. Every once in a while you might see just a little tad of batting from squaring up, but overall you should have enough that when they're putting their binding on at the 1/4 inch that you're not going to see the batting. So let's say that I would put this, I'm just showing you a line. So this would be, say, my 6 1/4, and I'll do that on this side as well. So I'm going to move it in 6 1/4. And what's under the ruler, let me get this last line here because I'm trying to hold it and show it. So this is the border of my quilt out here, and I'm lined up on the seam line of that final border that I put on, and I'm using that. So now I'm squaring up this part of the quilt from the side and at the top. And then I do that, you can do that into all 4 corners if you want, or at this point, if it's a bed size quilt, I would go ahead and get my long ruler. And now that I have 12 inches right here, I go back and overlap like 6 inches, still putting that 6 1/4 inch line on the ruler, on the border, on the line on the border seam. And then I go down, and then I keep going down. And then when I get to that, start getting close to the corner, I want to make sure that I'm at least 12 inches, 14 inches away from the corner, and then I go do the next corner. If your quilt is small, like a baby quilt, you can do all 4 of your corners at one time and then just line up in the middle at the end. But there is a technique to squaring up quilts to make sure that they're as square as possible. And then some people, when they putting them into shows, this is a whole nother ball game. This is just for regular, let's go ahead and get this quilt done and get it squared up according to how it was stitched up. When they're doing them for quilt shows, they are actually blocking. They're wetting their quilts and they're pinning into carpets or walls or however they do it. Some people have different ways of doing it. And they're going to block that quilt and let it dry so that it's square before they even put a binding on it. So it just depends on the technique you want to use. How serious are you about it? I have only blocked 1 quilt, and that was because I had the space to do it at my job. I used to have a crafting club after work the 1st and 3rd Fridays of the month. Was it the 2nd and 4th, I think? Maybe it was 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month. And we would stay after work, and then we had plenty of space that I could do stuff like that. But it's a process. It takes a long time to do that. Boanne Beth says, I did my first binding the other day after watching Tiffany. I fudged up. I have trouble matching the front and back when I flip. And welcome to the channel as well. Appreciate you putting a comment in. What people don't realize, and it's a little controversy to this, is that when you cut a 2.5 inch piece of binding, your seam allowance should technically be 3/8 of an inch instead of 1/4. So when you flip it to the back, you actually have a little bit more room to go. And it also then depends on if you're putting that binding on the front, flipping it to the back, or putting it on the back and flipping it to the putting it on the back, flipping it to the front, or putting it on the front and flipping it to the back. There's 2 different ways if you're going to machine do binding. I do use both ways, but technically you should be using 3/8 of an inch. If you're going to use a 1/4 of an inch seam, you should technically be using 2 and 1/4 inch strip for binding. That's why you'll see some people say they cut 2 1/4 inch for binding, and some people say they use 2 1/2. I just go ahead and use 2 1/2 because I can use 2 1/2 inch in any jelly rolls. They're all going to be the same size. But I do know that sometimes I can make my binding a little bit 3/8 of an inch makes it just a little bit wider so it stands out a little bit more as well. And if I'm doing it by the machine, sometimes I don't care about I'll still stitch a 1/4 of an inch because I know I'm going to stitch it down by machine, and that'll make sure I can catch it if I've sewn it on the front and flipping it to the back. It gives me a little bit more room for extra play. And in all honesty, unless it's going to be in a quilt show, I wouldn't do that for a quilt show. But in all honesty, for just regular quilt making, I don't have a problem with that, because I have never seen a quilt on the bed upside down. I'm just saying. I think we can get a little too persnickety about what's happening on the back of a quilt as far as a design or a pattern. But I'm telling you, most times I don't see quilts on beds upside down. So unless you've made a quilt that could be two-sided. If it's a quilt that you think that's equally as pretty on one side as it is on the front, then the user probably might flip it over. I have had times where I've sewn like various 1-yard cuts of fabric in a color palette. I've shown this in my video, different ways of making quilt backings, and one of them is just taking yardage that's god awful ugly and sewing it all together. Well, I had pulled so much fabric out of my stash that was god awful ugly that I color coordinated it, and then I start sewing them together by colors. And then so they're all 42 inches wide, and so if I made a bed quilt, I may have needed to use 2 or 3 pieces to go from top to bottom to the quilt, plus have room to put it on my long arm. I've given those quilts to people, and guess what? They've liked the back better than the front. I'm like, I wish I had known that. I could have been done in a day instead of spending 3 months working on a quilt for you. So you'll be surprised that, you know, if you're piecing backs, but if they're just plain backs, I don't think it's going to matter. But I've still never seen a quilt on somebody's bed backwards. So it just depends on the person. Katie says there's nothing better than someone loving and using your quilt right. And I don't mind making them another one. I just know that I've made quilts for people, especially my family members, where they weren't asked for, and I just was making everybody in the family a quilt. And then like a year later, I go over to somebody's house and I see it folded up in the corner on the floor. And I'm like, I wonder why is it on the floor? But I didn't say anything, and then eventually the dog goes over there and lay on it. So they have made my quilt that I spent a lot of time, effort, and I was piecing. And what I was doing is I was doing a lot of experiment, putting colors together that I might not normally use, different pattern design, creating stuff. But I was in love with everything that I made and did. It wasn't like I made it and go, oh, I'm just going to give it away. Some of those quilts I had a hard time parting with. I didn't want to let them go. And then when I walked over there and saw that my quilt was folded into 4s and on the floor is a dog bed, I was like, oh, okay. And it took about maybe 10 years for that person to ask me for another quilt. And I just told them that what they'll have to pay for me to make them a quilt. I haven't heard another thing from them. But it's like, huh? Are you crazy? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. No more from me. Nikki says, very true. I made one for someone and never heard a peep. Hurt my feelings. Yeah, and it's like, and I think what's happened is if people don't have anything nice to say, they're not going to say anything at all, which in a way is a good thing, but you still need to thank somebody for at least sometimes if you send something through somebody too, or if you give a gift as a wedding gift and it's all in with all the other wedding gifts and you never get a thank you or acknowledgement of the quilt that you made for them, I think sometimes we just want to know that the gift was received. Sometimes because we don't even know if the gift was received. And then other times you do want to know if they like it or. And I've had a person, I was at a Christmas party, and a friend had given her niece a quilt that she made. And she opened up the package, and the quilt was purple. It was beautiful, though, but it was purple. It kind of reminded me of these colors. And the quilt was beautiful. And she says, I don't like purple. Can you make me a quilt with something else? And the friend said, great, I can do that. If they're honest and telling you that they don't want it, don't let somebody take something home if they don't want it. If they're saying that, I appreciate the niece for saying it, number one. And number two, my friend handled it very well, because it was a whole room full of people. I mean, we were having a holiday party. It was a whole room full of people, and both of them could have took the response different ways. And the friend says yes, and all she wanted was a small quilt made with some brown colors, landscape type stuff. She wanted a small quilt so she could put on her wall. Okay. Most definitely take back a bed quilt if somebody is not wanting it, you know? So, but yeah, for somebody to just outright give you a quilt to a dog, I think that's rude. But when you give a quilt, and I had somebody told me, when you give a quilt, you can't control what people do with it, and that's true. But I can control whether or not you get another quilt from me. That I can do. uh-uh. Haha, I say, drag this quilt to a picnic, camping, or beach, or on an afternoon movie with popcorn. Right. And I've even made quilt that I made for a picnic. I made a denim quilt, and I put flannel on the back, and it's even got batting in it, so it's really heavy. And I made it for a picnic quilt, and guess what? After it touched the floor from me making it, laying it out, that's the only floor it's been on. It's never been out in the grass or anything like that. But you know, there are things that we do make for people to do certain things with. So I have no problems with that. I actually made one, but I couldn't even find myself to do that. Although I've never been at the park where I had the opportunity to take a quilt to the park and put on the ground either. I'm mostly at places like ball parks, children games, where we're sitting in chairs so it can hold our drink cup. Not necessarily a picnic. So I've never had the opportunity to take it as a picnic quilt either. So, but right now I don't see myself putting it in the grass, even though I made it for that. Okay. um, and Sue was saying, watch on television, comment on the phone, talking about the Roku responses earlier. Hey, Blackbird 22 is here. Rochelle says, my phone and Roku have everything the same. I can connect. I do that, but it doesn't come up the same for me. Mine's is hooked up. And my phone and my iPad, they hook up. And they're two different devices. One's an Android and one's Apple. And they hook up. But when I go to the Roku, it just, all my subscriptions, none of that stuff carries over into the phone subscriptions and stuff. So it's just weird for me. And so she's actually watching by putting her stuff. She's connect. See, I don't connect. I connect my YouTube account, my app, with the Roku, but I don't cast to my TV from my phone. So I guess that's one of the reasons why. So I do understand what she's saying now. Okay, so I'm not casting. I don't have time to do that. Because whatever you do on the phone, if you go do something else on your phone, it affects the TV. And so I just tend to watch on the television. Cheryl saying thank you to somebody. I don't know if it's to me or somebody else. Boanne says she uses the Florida blog. Yep. Darcy's reminding people to hit the thumbs up button. I appreciate you, Darcy. Um, Lane's like, I like to sew front to the front, hand sew to the back. That's what I had been doing for many, many years. And if I'm going to put a quilt in a show, that's what I would do. However, I have seen a quilt from somebody that won an award, Sharon Chambers. And she put her binding on by machine, but it was absolutely perfect. And you would have never known it unless you went to the back and looked at it. And Kevin was the one that spotted it first. And I go, that is put on by machine. Because Kevin was like, did she put this on by machine? I'm like, yes, she did. But it's so perfect from the front, you can't even tell. You had to see it. The only reason you saw the back was because it was award-winning quilt, and it was in the area where they pull the top, the best of shows in the different categories, and she was up there. So, thanks for your help with binding. I think I'm going to hand stitch. I ripped it off and don't want to ever go through that again, laughing out loud. And you know, when you're doing something like that, I had to teach like a binding little workshop at my guild, and what I did was I just used like a 12-inch square, and I just showed all the different steps of sewing the binding on the square, so that way I didn't have to use a lot of pieces. So make placemats, things that you can use, or pot holders, and practice on those. And then by the time you get to a big quilt that's the size to wrap around somebody, you've got a little bit more experience. So with you being new into this and doing it for the first time, use it, do it on stuff that doesn't matter, stuff that doesn't have to be pretty, and then you'll get better. That's what I would recommend. Make something smaller. I'm trying to figure out why was a Sparky Owl hidden and timed out. I think it was a mistake for Remo, but I don't know what happened after that. Sparky Owl, if you're not able to comment in the future, just email me at teaquilts@teaquilts.com and tell me that what your YouTube name is, because sometimes it will put you in the block thing and won't let you come back into chat. So make sure you let me know. I think it was an accident by Remo, I'm hoping. Wash Your Hands is here saying she's late. Joe Carmel says, yes, that's happened to me. My coworker told me my quilt that I gave was being used in the garage for the cat. Ain't that something? Oh my gosh. Dee Dee says, I have a lot of denim. What pattern do you recommend? Need large pieces because small pieces will have too many seams. I did a rag quilt with my denim. And I like I said, I use flannel on the back, so flannel also will rag. I just used squares, but when you're sewing squares with denim, you need to offset the lines so that they're not connecting from row to row because it's too thick. And I haven't had any problems. I've shown it a lot because it's in one of my lectures. But when I hold it up, a heavy quilt will start breaking seams too. And I've had other rag quilts break because of so much thread. And I've even restitched them 2 and 3 times. So what I learned to do for the denim quilt was to offset a half block, so my seams are not in rows where all the seams are matching, going up and down and left and right. So I just did squares on a rag quilt. Deborah says, I love the quilt you made for me, and as you know, it's starting to fall apart. I don't know if that's like a sign for me to make her another quilt, but ma'am, you're going to get your bed quilts out. You got plenty of quilts there. You just need to get them quilted. You can come quilt. You don't even have to quilt it on yours. You can come here and quilt. And I can't see why, I can't see, let me go back and see if I can find the comment that was hidden and hide it, but I don't think so. View deleted message. Yeah, because I didn't see this comment and I can't get it back. Unhide user on this channel. She was saying, I went back and found Sparky comment. Says, you're a good person and I hope that they will have it for a long time through many generations. And that was when I was talking about the double wedding ring quilt. So I don't know what happened with that. So I've just unhidden her, and I hope that she can comment. If you could, whoever you are, male or female, if you could comment again, I would appreciate it if you can. And if not, just email me and I'll make sure I get you out, because once I get out of these live chats, I forget everything. It's just a matter of the beast. I get occupied with something else. Jackie Jones is here. Welcome to the channel, Jackie, as well as the chat. Saying hi to everybody. Wash your hands says, I heard it's easier to free motion on sewing machines where the bobbin is not a drop in, but the snap in kind. I find this to be true for me. And I guess that just depends on the sewing machine, because most of my machines that I've free motion quilted on had drop in at the top, and they were plastic bobbins, but I didn't have a problem with it. But I think part of it is you need to look at your book and make sure that you're doing everything correct for setting up your machine for free motion quilting, because some of them could be different, whereas my Singer XL 1000 was a little different than everybody else. So make sure you're setting your machine up correct as well. Sue is making pulled pork for work. Oh, wow. Becky Bramlett is here. Hey, Becky. She says, I'm actually here, but trying to get over about a bronchitis. So even my finger hurts from coughing. Oh, my gosh. That's horrible. I hate when I'm coughing so much that it hurts. Katie says, I tried the shortcut method to make 44 quarter square triangles, and it's been 4 times the work as the regular way. So much for a shortcut. And sometimes that happens. And one of the things that I tell people is when you're doing a pattern, no matter where you're getting it, if it's a purchase pattern, come from a magazine, a free pattern, if they're telling you to make 200 half square triangles and they're telling you to make it a particular way, make them the way that you're most comfortable making it. Go off the pattern at that point. Go make your half square triangles, whether you want to paper piece them, if you want to die cut them, if you want to cut squares that are an inch bigger than your finished size so that you can square them all up, or you can cut them. Say you want 2-inch finish, you cut 2 7/8 inch and cut ones diagonally, and then they all are the size if you're comfortable with your 1/4 inch seam. I say make the half square triangles however you're most comfortable making them. Make the flying geese however you're most comfortable. Make those 1/4 square triangles the way you're most comfortable. Whenever I'm doing some kind of shortcut, I never cut the whole thing. I will cut just a few pieces and see if I like it. I'll do like 2 of them, because say they're doing them in batches of 12 or something. I might cut enough to do 2 batches of 12. And then if I don't like them, like that technique, doing it twice, because the first time is a learning curve. The second time I'm doing it, it should go a lot quicker. If I don't like it, I don't ever visit that again. I'm not going to do that. So there are so many ways to get to the same end result in quilt making. So I always tell people to pick the one that you like the best. Wash your hands says, sorry. Oh, she's talking to Becky. Boanne says, I saw a rag quilt where they did half square every other row and the frame went diagonal. I loved it. The frame went diagonal. I don't know about that. I don't know what that part means, but I do know doing a half block makes a big difference when you're gonna put denim together, because it's too thick. Your machine's not gonna want to sew over that stuff, and if it does, and if you have to hand turn your wheel to get over seam, that's a weak seam too. So I just don't like when I have to hand turn my wheel to get over a seam. So I don't do like really fancy, intricate designs with denim because of that. I think it needs room for the seaming. Jean Sutter is here, says, saw you at Paducah Quilt Show. wanted to say hi, but there were so many people between us. So hi T. Hey Jean. It's always okay for us to speak at the quilt shows. Anytime you see me out, I'm very open to that. Even if I'm clowning around or looking at something serious, I always take time and just say hi to people, because I really appreciate you all wanting to say hi. So, and sometimes make sure you get to me, because sometimes, not every time, but sometimes I'm at quilt show, like I had pens in my purse to give people at Paducah, and only one person got a pen because I forgot to give them out. Okay. I felt so bad. I had seen so many people when I was at Paducah and only gave out one pen because I totally forgot. But always stop me. You never know if I got something to give. Donna Martinez says, hey, hi Miss T and Quilters. I'm late, but glad I finally made it to one of your lives. I've been watching and enjoying your past videos on your YouTube channel. So thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. I really love when people go back and watch the old videos, because I'm not in a habit of uploading anything recently. I think I did 2 last week. I'm trying to get another one done for Friday. Still working on the die cutting series. I got to do some editing on this video. I got the stuff out. I got to add some stuff in now. So I'm trying to work on doing some editing, but it takes time as well. So I haven't had time to edit since last week. Oops, I just lost my chat. Becky saying thanks. Thank you to wash your hands. I sure hope I can stop coughing soon. Yeah, that's horrible. That hurts. Donna, you need to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when T is here. That's that's Darcy. That's my thumbs up moderator. And I'm assuming that Sparky Al 43's wasn't able to come back in, even though I unhid the message and I unhid them. It still didn't seem like it worked. So I'll try to remember, but I gotta do it on my desktop. I can't do it on my phone. That's the problem with YouTube. The app only lets you do so much. It won't let me unblock people that have been blocked too. So yeah. So it's 8:13. I don't know how I'm over. I was not paying attention to time. This is my first time looking at the time. So I have completely gone over. Quilt. Teresa Lynch is asking, Miss T, are you coming to QuiltCon in Raleigh next year? I have no idea what I'm going to do. I enjoy QuiltCon in Atlanta. This is my first time actually going to QuiltCon. I really enjoyed it. I just don't know if I'm going to go that far to go to another one. So we'll see. Going to North Carolina is about, I don't know. It took me about 12 hours to get to South Carolina. I'm thinking North Carolina is going to be just a little bit longer. I don't know. I don't know if I want to be in the car that long. The Atlanta trip was something else. And then I had my daughter and Jersey in the car. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We'll see. We shall see. Donna saying that she is subscribed and have hit the bell. And, of course, did the thumbs up. So thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. Well, we're going to get ready to get off here because I'm already over time. I had no clue I was over. So I appreciate you all's patience. And nobody said, hey, do you know it's after 8 p.m.? Had no topic, thinking I'm going to be off here early, and now I'm over. So thank you all so much. If you all would like, please come back on Saturdays where I do sew and chat for 2 hours, start at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, go to 10. And I will be hopefully cutting some more pieces out that I can cut these pieces here for sewing. These are going to eventually go onto my Crown Royal quilt. So I'm just sewing border pieces, sewing some lengths, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to need and use from there. So that's going to be it for tonight, guys. You all stay blessed, be safe, and quilt out, everybody. See you soon.